And these three drivers, they interact, they combine, the risk and vulnerability further compounded, leading to more injustice and crisis to mountains and the communities. The community-led initiatives in the mountains have initiated to act on climate actions, and we already have some successes on adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk reduction. If you see the experiences and learning on adaptation, the local communities in the mountains, they are practicing spatial adaptation, for example, transhuman pastoralism, practicing temporal adaptation, using the traditional practice of storing seed, food, water, and various resources. And they are applying various resilience measures, including diversification of livelihoods. And communities are also practicing anticipatory early actions, such as early warning systems. And these experiences are based on local knowledge, skills, practices, and technology, and contributing to nature-based solutions. The common pooling of resources through collective action in managing the resources is another best example of contributing to the adaptation. The contribution of community-led actions is also equally important in mitigation and disaster risk reduction. For example, the community-led initiatives are on scaling up renewable energy and forest protection, which is contributing to carbon sequestration. I have some data from Nepal's community forestry, the accumulation of carbon inside the community forest of Nepal. And communities are always in forefront in responding to disasters. The research tells us in any disaster events, the communities are the first institutions reaching to respond to the disaster-affected communities. And the local communities are mobilizing local and external resources and reaching to the most vulnerable and needy people. For example, the community forestry user groups have developed the well-being ranking, which is very much applicable at the time of disaster and crisis to reach to the most vulnerable population. Locally led climate actions have many limitations. The locally led climate actions are based on experiences, not on projected scenario of climate uncertainty. Another limitation is the community-led actions are limited to local actions, not sufficient to address need for climate actions at different scales. And the research says there is the domination of elites within the communities, which is creating some difficulties to reaching to the most vulnerable population. And there are many challenges, and our efforts for adaptation is also inadequate. There are many challenges in translating policy commitments into actions. In terms of policies, we have very progressive policies, but we see the status of their implementation, there are many limitations. We have prepared many local community adaptation plans, but if we see the implementation of those plans and continuity of those plans, there are many challenges. And there is very limited investment in capacity building of local institutions and people. And there are gaps in understanding risk and vulnerability. Mostly the risk and vulnerability has been understood from the hazard perspective, so our responses are mostly guided to address the hazards, then vulnerability, and the underlying causes of vulnerability. And there are challenges in mainstreaming climate actions. If we see the global policy discourses, there is a high focus on role of local institutions and climate actions. And these policy documents have also highlighted the need for capacity building, needs to provide more resources and technology to the local communities. For example, the UNFCCC has promoted local communities and indigenous groups platform. Paris Agreement acknowledges the importance of involving local communities. IPCC has a special focus on the importance of indigenous and local knowledge, and IPCC has recognized, especially the sixth assessment report has recognized the differential vulnerability of certain communities. And Global Commission on Adaptation has developed principles for locally led adaptation, which is now endorsed by very powerful, very strong, more than 120 organizations across the globe. However, there are many challenges in operationalizing locally led adaptation principles. And likewise, the distribution of climate finance is unfair, and there is injustice. If you see the CPI data of 2023, the Global Adaptation Fund available, which is 30 billion, out of these, only 3% of these resources went to LDCs. And when the resources even reach to the LDCs, the only part of this goes to the needy people. So there are some important steps that we need to consider to reinforce the power to mountain communities for climate actions. There is a need for devolving decision making at local level, and it is very important to address the structural inequalities faced by women, youth, children, people living with disabilities, and other marginalized communities. And providing adequate, predictable, and easy access to finance is urgent. And investment in local capabilities and local institutions is very important. Likewise, building a robust understanding of climate risk and uncertainty is important, and this whole process must be very transparent and accountable. And promoting collaboration between different sources of finance, contributing on DRR or development aid or humanitarian assistance must be collaboration between these different sources of financial measures. And building adaptation and resilience entrepreneurship is another important area. So I conclude my presentation by saying that local communities are not just victims or passive recipients of the impacts, but are vital actors capable of building resilience to climate-related challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Popular Gentle. He has very clearly highlighted the important role of rural communities and local communities to respond to the disaster, to respond to the climate disaster and any other development initiatives that go to the community. The main point that I learned is communities are at the forefront to respond to the disaster, for the reconstruction, to rescue, to respond to hunger, to respond to anything. Because communities are at the forefront to reach to the neighbors. And without empowering local communities, we cannot respond to the climate crisis. How do we do that? Now, in this session, we have very distinguished, experienced panelists have worked with communities, and they will bring different perspectives from research, from advocacy, from development interventions from production perspectives. So let me welcome first Ms. Aisa Khan. Aisa is from Pakistan. Please join hands to welcome her. Aisa Khan comes from Pakistan. She is a founder and chair executive Civil Society Coalition for Climate Change and Mountain and Glacier Protection Organization. Welcome you, Aisa. Now let me welcome Mr. Martin Olthoff. He comes from Netherlands. He's a Dutch ecologist. He's founder patron of Bajra Academy. Martin will also guide the excursion to the Bajra Academy on Sunday afternoon. So anyone who is interested to join the Bajra Academy, you can contact Martin. Martin, you are most welcome to the session. The third, I will welcome Dr. Mita Saizu. Mita is from Nepal. Many of us know her. She is Senior Research Fellow of South Asia Institute of Advanced Studies, SIAS, and also Senior Fellow at Mountain Institute. Mita ji, you are most welcome. Now let me welcome Mr. Niels Balzer. He's from Switzerland. Niels is Deputy Country Director of UN World Food Programme. Niels, you are most welcome. So these are our distinguished panelists. We will start from Aisa. Aisa, like Nepal, Pakistan is also a mountainous country, and mountain populations are vulnerable, but they do also have a lot of knowledge, lots of social values, experiences, and if we capitalize the knowledge that you have, our work will be much easier. That's what we believe in, right? So as you are engaged in mountain and glacier protection campaign, and you are also leading Civil Society Coalition for Climate Change, you might have observed both the hardship the people face because of climate crisis and the strengths they have in generating climate solutions. Can you please share with us your observation of hardship and the strengths that they have, which can be capitalized?
Thank you, Bimlaji. It's always a pleasure to be in Nepal and to be part of these mountain conversations, because what I hear and see is a resolve from speakers that is as strong as the mountains. My own determination to work for this cause is also closely linked to my interface with mountains. 25 years ago, when I first trekked to the base camp of K2, I realized the power of nature, and I also had my first experience probably of spirituality. When I came down, I decided not to return home, but to live with the communities for an extended period, and that period became 3 months. During that month, all I had was a tent in which I slept on the ground. I had the spring and the river as my source of water. I had the trees and timber for energy, and a place behind a stone that I used for my toilet. That immersion experience actually taught me what it is like to live in mountain communities. And that immersion experience is very important for anyone who really wants to understand how communities live, what hardships they endure, and what are the solutions that they find to coexist with nature in that harsh environment. 25 years ago, when I started working with the communities, their first priority was support in education and in healthcare. Because 25 years ago, climate change was not palpable. It was not affecting their lives directly. Today, I work with them, and have continued to work with them throughout these years, and their priorities have shifted. And that clearly tells me what are the real-time hardships that they face. Their first requirement now is for flood protection walls, for irrigated agriculture support, and for safe drinking water. Now, what's happening in mountain communities, all of us are aware of that already, that the hydrological imbalance is creating variability in the timings of the flow, in the quantity of the water that they need for agriculture, because these are high altitude villages, and the region where I work is dominated by mountains. 94% of that territory is mountain, 2% is water bodies, and only 4% is available for cultivation. So what we do is to try and put communities in the center and look at their problems through their lens. And because they've lived with that land and that environment for so long, they know the solutions. It's just that nature is now changing too rapidly for them to keep pace with that change, and we need science and technology. But that indigenous knowledge, that traditional wisdom that comes from years of having interacted with nature cannot be put aside. You have to make it part of your policy. What I see as their strength is their ability to learn quickly and to adapt. And what I see as the weaknesses are not with the communities, but with the system itself. I continue to learn. I'm older, I'm wiser, but I'm still learning from the communities and from nature. And there are a couple of things that, 3 things in fact, Bimlaji, that I would like to point out. The first is that we have to understand that linking belief with biology is very important. For example, if being a vegetarian is part of your belief system, you do it automatically. But if you want to create a critical mass to transform their dietary habits by telling them that it's good for the environment, it's not likely to happen. So we have to understand and use these tools to take that agenda forward. In Nepal also, I believe there are sacred taboos that prevent people from, or ask people not to cut trees on certain days, which actually conform and align with good forestry practices. The second thing is linking ecology with economy. It's no use going to these communities and telling them what needs to be done unless they have a financial gain from that. So if you think of mountain regions today, tourism has increased many fold in these regions. Now, mountain communities will exploit this opportunity to degrade the environment to make the extra money because their vision is short-term. They do not take a long-term deterministic view of climate and the future. So if you develop tourism in ways which promotes local traditions and allows them to celebrate local culture, that's a much better way of getting a better buck for your money. The third thing that I notice is that at policy circles, we often talk about inclusion, we talk about participation, but the policies that we make are top-down. They're theoretical constructs that look very good on paper, but they do not actually reflect the hopes and aspirations of the community. So what we need to do is actually ask the communities what is it that is their priority, and then co-create solutions which will work for them, because they have to be contextualized in their socio-economic conditions and in the cultural environment which they respond to very well. The last message that I'd like to say, Bimlaji, just a quick reflection, is that when we think of community, I think of South Asia as one landmass, and I think of all the people who live in this landmass as one community. So all of us in this region must work together, must understand that without working together and synchronizing what we do and bringing strength to the actions that we are taking, we are not going to be able to protect the mountains that we've all gathered here to celebrate, commemorate, and recognize their strength and their importance, and work for mountain communities who are actually the real custodians of the land that they live in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The communities are very quick to learn. Weakness is not in the communities, but to the systems, in the systems. And it is important that we understand their context, we link their economy, and we link theory to practice, to understanding their context, so that our solutions become more contextual. So this is the clear message you have given, Isa. Thank you so much for your insights. Now let me quickly move to Martin. Martin, you are an ecologist dedicated to empowering rural communities in Nepal through health and education-based development projects. You draw inspiration from Buddhist and Hindu spirituality to promote sustainable ecological practices. Your Green School project through Bajra Foundation is very commendable. Now, how do you see the role of education, school curricula basically, in preserving or diminishing local knowledge and local initiatives in building climate resilience?
Thank you very much for this question. Everybody knows that Nepal is the highest country in the world. I'm from the opposite. I'm from the Netherlands, which literally means the lowlands. I can tell you that 50% of our country is already below sea level. And scientists have concluded that there is no way we can save our land in the future. At a certain point, we will have to return land to the sea and see what is left. So I bear with the people in the mountainous areas. And the water that is melting here from the glaciers is attacking our shores. And that is not your fault. In fact, my country belongs to the countries that created this situation. So therefore, I feel also responsible to do something in return. This morning, there were wonderful speeches about what is being undertaken already. That is wonderful. More is needed, I would say, more of the same and new things. But I found that one thing is lacking, even in this, the program of this conference. And I can link it to the outcomes of the COP29 in Baku last year. One of the outcomes was that green education should be a key component of climate action. And I'm of the opinion that this is a very important new step. So far, the next generation has been at the sideline when it comes to policy making. And as for this conference, I wonder if I may ask the audience a question. Everybody who has the age of below 25, could you please stand up? Below 25. Okay, now you can see for yourself. Because we are talking about your future. We are talking about your generation. Please, you can sit down. Because you will bear the environmental and climatological consequences of what the rest of this hall is leaving behind, let's put it that way. At the same time, your generation has to come up with new scientists, new politicians, new teachers, new fundraisers, new policymakers. And if Nepal wants to be emission-free by the year 2045, then I think that green education is at the need of the hour. There is no time to lose. We all know that the youth is the pillar of the future. It's often said, but what does it mean? It means that at this very moment, we can turn schools into eco-friendly institutions. Students can become role models. They can become advocates for a green and eco-friendly lifestyle. And with the help of the teachers, through the students, we can reach out to the parents and educate them. And as every country, I'm not talking about Nepal alone, every country in the world has schools in every corner of the country. So this is a way to transform the society from within. May I tell a few of examples where I have tried to contribute? Well, one of the achievements is a solar cooker project in the Bhutanese refugee camps in eastern Nepal. 100,000 refugees were living there in the forest, chopping the firewood in the forest that was owned by the community, and obviously this had to lead to clashes in which there were also casualties. I started on a very small scale with different types of solar cookers, and I will skip the whole story, but in 2006, 85,000 refugees were using our cookers to cook their food with the sun. At that time, it was, and it is still, the biggest solar cooker project on the planet. And it has significantly decreased the clashes between the refugees and the local community. This project inspired us to start our team, Dutch Nepali team, to start the first green and eco-friendly school in Nepal in 2007, 18 years back. At that time, people said that we were crazy. It was weird to spend money on ecology. Now people say, maybe after all, it wasn't a very bad idea. And one more minute? What does it mean, green education? Now, first of all, for this you need a green curriculum in which the nature is a classroom and a teacher. But that can be supported by eco-solutions, like our school here in the Kathmandu Valley, the Vajra Academy Eco School, has a solar kitchen, it has a biogas plant, it has a dairy farm, milk goes to the children, to the students, the dung goes to the biogas plant. There are organic gardens, there are herbal gardens, there are beehives, there is rainwater harvesting, waste separation, there is composting, etc.
Thank you. We follow up your experience again in next round. Thank you so much, Martin. As you very clearly said, education needs to be at the center because schools are everywhere, parents are everywhere, and teachers are everywhere. And if we transform school into ecological friendly institutions, then we can reach to the world. So this is the very clear message, and you have demonstrated that it works through Nepal's experience. Thank you, Martin. Now I move to Dr. Meeta Saiju. Meeta-ji, you have extensive experience of participatory action research done in community level, especially in the areas of gender equality, food security, and biodiversity. You were also engaged in building capacity of women's leadership in water, energy, food security, and ecosystem nexus approach with government and other actors. Now, in your experience, in the high mountains area, how have the issues of 3 Cs, conservation, communities, and culture, featured in efforts to build resilience in a rapidly changing context? What are some of the good practices that you have gone through in your participatory action research in the mountains?
Thank you very much, Bimla-ji. I want to start off with 2 stories, and I see some audience members here who might be familiar with it. In the highlands in Peru, many years ago, not many years ago, but some years ago, the communities got together to discuss their issue of drying pasture land with scientists of NGOs that were working with them. Their livelihoods depended on these pasture lands, and they were at a bit of a loss as to how to revive these areas. The elderly population of those communities talked to the scientists, and after a series of consultations and research, they were successful in reviving a canal system that was 1,200 years old. The structures were still there, but the water was not flowing. So over a period of 2 years, through collective action, these groups, these communities, in 2 particular communities in the Peru highlands, they were successful in using this traditional knowledge that they had, that their communities still had, handed down from over generations and with the scientists working together to actually bring back water to those canals and to restore the Puna land out there. Not only was water flowing through the canals once again, but it was somehow supporting the entire ecosystem of the area, and water was being retained in a manner that was helping the whole area to come up alive again. This effort won several different awards because of the success that it had, and it very closely out to where collective action, traditional knowledge, and scientific innovations and technologies combined together. The second story is closer to home. It's from the eastern part of the country in Nepal, in the high mountain areas. A 2 to 3 hour walk to the forest to collect some herbs slowly was becoming a 3 to 4 days walk to collect the same herbs. And it was taking more and more time for those communities to collect these herbs, until at a point where the communities sat together with the NGOs that was supporting them to say that they needed collective action to resolve this issue. The communities then worked with the local NGO folks. They learned how to cultivate certain medicinal and aromatic plants on their barren lands. They made their own norms and rules to sort of, stop collection of medicinal plants in the forest. And over a period of time, a combination of conservation, economic livelihood, and the respect for the medicinal herbs was all, coming together and becoming fruitful. These two stories from highlands across the world, brought, a lot of issues together for us when we were working with these communities. My colleagues were working in Peru, I was working in Nepal. I will talk again about a bit more later on the research aspect. But what I wanted to bring out here was that we have science and then we have traditional knowledge. And when we are able to bring these two together, I think we have a better impact. When we talk about high mountains, these days we are increasingly talking about glaciers and less snow in the mountains, which is very, very important. But in the context of Nepal, we forget about the little communities far apart in these highland areas, which have been excluded from a lot of different elements. And when we talk about gender equality and social inclusion, it is the geographic exclusion that make them vulnerable. And when we forget about these communities, because they are costly to reach, development interventions and adaptation interventions will be very costly to go to small pockets. But we forget that these communities have been there, have been restoring their areas for years and years, until they are now at a point where it's not feasible for them to do it themselves. So instead of working on these silos, when we talk about the different sectors, if we could bring together the idea of conservation, the idea of community, and the idea of spirituality and culture, I think we have a better, better chance at maybe looking at a more sustainable future in the coming years.
Thank you, Neetaji. You very clearly gave us two examples, two stories of the world, including from Nepal, and then, science and traditional knowledge. They need to come together to have better impact. And I really liked your last statement saying conservation, spirituality, culture, they need to come together. Thank you so much, Neetaji, for sharing your experience. Now I move to Nils. Nils, you have been fighting against hunger and food insecurity in different capacities through World Food Programme. Local communities' dynamics are changing very fast in the area of globalization and technological advancement. In this changing scenario, what is the significance of local knowledge, social values, norms, and traditional practices in natural resource management, especially in food security and reducing hunger?
Thank you so much, Bimala, for the questions. Good evening, everyone. Namaste, and I'll try not to see that 1 minute card and be short and sweet this time. But let me start by highlighting the fundamental importance of understanding the rapidly changing context. And within that context, also the rapidly changing risks and opportunities that communities and people face in the vagaries of climate change, of the technological advance that you mentioned, as well as, of course, the overall globalization. And so it makes it, I think, equally important that we understand the communities and people in those changing contexts. That means understanding cultural practices, social norms, social values. And while not all these values may be relevant every time, many are, and I think they're heavily underutilized, right? And our experience as WFP, but I think I speak on behalf of a lot of other development partners here as well, shows that if such traditional values, norms, and practices are brought together with new or more modern instruments and tools, we actually have a very powerful way of managing ever-increasing climate risk, right? And that climate risk that we need to manage is at the heart of food insecurity and malnutrition that we see, unfortunately, increasing worldwide again. Now, I just want to briefly touch on one of the initiatives that we've been supporting globally, and I think is very relevant in mountainous context as well. This is about, it's called the R4 Rural Resilience Initiative, but what it essentially does, it brings 4 different elements to the table. The first one is about risk reduction. The second one is about risk transfer. The third one is about risk absorption. And the fourth one is about prudent risk taking. A lot of jargon, a lot of words there. I'll try to put a bit of meaning into that. So the first one on risk reduction is really about reducing the impact of climate shocks, right? And we can do this in different ways. And again, we try to marry the more traditional practices, knowledge, with some more maybe modern tools that we have on board. So for instance, it's bringing back drought-resistant seeds. It's bringing back crop that are more resistant to different diseases that are occurring more frequently because of climate change. But it's also about traditional water harvesting systems. It's about marrying more higher technological early warning systems with indigenous knowledge that looks at early warning systems as well. So that would be the risk reduction part. Risk transfer, in other words, insurance. An interesting example here from Nepal is as well that with climate change, it's now, or thanks to climate change, it's now possible to grow apples at a much higher altitude. So Mustang, Jumla have actually benefited from climate change if you want to. They grow more apples. It's a cash crop for those communities as well. But let's not forget that climate change also comes with other vagaries, right? More probably droughts that you see flash floods. It's usually too much in too little a time, right? When it comes to weather. Now, to manage that risk, right? In case you have that hailstorm and your apple harvest is gone down the drain, literally, you will have a payout. So it protects your livelihood through an insurance component. That's the second one, the risk transfer part. The third one is about risk absorption. It's about enabling better risk absorption at household and community level. Much of this has to do in reconstituting or promoting traditional saving groups. And we can marry this again with some more modern techniques. For instance, use modern banking systems to strengthen these traditional saving schemes. So that's really, and that risk absorption part is, and it came up earlier, there will be loss, there will be damage, right? That's unavoidable. But if you have some level of a cushion through a savings mechanism, this will help you get through this patch, so to say. Last but not least, prudent risk-taking sounds also quite fancy, but this is really about financial education. It's about livelihood diversification. It's easier access to credit that allows you to invest. So the 1 minute is not yet up, so I have another couple. So oh, it is there. Time up, actually. Okay, very quickly. So this initiative, what it does, it combines both modern, new technologies with traditional knowledge and practices. And what's important there as well, it has an economic viability perspective, right? I think ultimately an incentive for these type of approaches is to go to scale if they're economically viable, if they help you build up your livelihood going forward as well. So I'll leave it at here. Thank you.
Very good concept of risk reduction, transfer, absorption, and taking. This is the new thing that I learned, and I hope this is you also enjoyed that audience. We will take some questions after the second round of panel's question. So I would request all the participants to note down your observation, your comments, and your questions so that we can discuss in next round. Now we have very limited time remained for the second round of question. I will quickly start with Aisha again. Aisha, you have been involved with civil society groups. Actually, you are founder and leader of the coalition of civil society. So how do you think the role of civil society to bring communities' concerns and experiences to national and global politics and policy making?
Civil society actually is a very broad term. You cover a lot of actors under that space. You can have civil society actors like myself who work in a non-governmental space with communities and with policymakers. You have the media, you have scientists, you have researchers. Everyone works within their space, and it's not for me to say which role is more important than the other, because all of them actually come together and create the impact that we need for change. Essentially, I think civil society's role is to serve as a bridge between science and policy. That's the connection that is missing in civil society. Through those various actors and the roles that they play can actually mobilize opinion, and whatever their task or their TOR or their key objective is to try and achieve that. I'd also like to say that when civil society is operating in a space, one thing is to do something because you consider that as your work, but the other thing is to do something that aligns with your temperament also, and it's rooted in your deep conviction. For example, when I work as civil society, I am civil society, but I think deeper down, I'm a humanist and a naturalist first. So when I work with the principle of do no harm, and I work with the principle of recognize the power of nature and learn to work with nature to create balance and harmony so man and nature can thrive in tandem. I think one of the things that civil society can do is to exercise its right of vote and bring policy makers who they think will best safeguard their future.
Okay. Make them more accountable.
Make their voices matter through that platform, because working in isolation and silos is okay. And although we do talk about breaking silos and working together, I've not really seen that work, because everyone likes to covet their niche space and protect it.
Right.
But at the ballot box, you can go together and you can bring and put a government in place that represents of the majority.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aisha. Let me now move to Martin. Martin, do you have any specific recommendations for Sagarmatha Sambaad-like forum to consider in building connection and partnership between local and global, regional and in between?
Thank you for this question,
Yeah.
Bimalaji. I think I might have a few. I studied the climate change fact sheet, which is presented in the website of the Sagarmatha Sambaad. And there I came across the National Adaptation Plan, the NIP, of the Nepal government. It defines 9 thematic areas. And I looked at them all, but green education is still lacking. So that is a missed chance I would strongly recommend to include it as number 10. Yeah. Sorry? So that would be one. And that would also follow the recommendations of COP29 in Baku. Baku also delivered a huge amount, if you may believe it, $300 billion per year for countries like Nepal. And there is a chance for the Nepal government, of course, not only for the Nepal government, but countries like Nepal, to allocate the funds to enable schools to install more eco-friendly solutions and to incorporate green education into their education. Now, there is also good news that last month our foundation and school started a dialogue with the Nepal government to expand green education to 7 corners of the country, in every province, one green school, with the Vajra Academy school as a model school. So nothing has been approved yet, but that is a positive sign. And I think that I haven't heard mentioned in any talk today the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as set by the United Nations. I think they should be at the heart of every school and its curriculum. And for the Vajra Academy, I have tried to link each goal to practices in the school. And I was able to cover them all. So it can be done. One more recommendation, if I may, is similar as the question about youth. If I may ask the women participants to stand up. Please, all women in the audience, can you stand up? Well, that's not too bad. This morning, I had another view, but you represent all the mothers in the world. I mean, you represent the ones who gave birth to everybody living today. You know what it means to nurture life and what means a healthy life. And I would like to recommend to have even more mothers participating in the next
lovely.
Sagarmatha Sambaad.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. Lovely. Yes. Thank you. Mitaji, I'm coming back to you. How necessary do you think scientific research and innovations to work together and learn from traditional knowledge and practices of communities? Do you have any specific methodologies in mind that could be effective to bring scientific knowledge to the rural and local traditional practices?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bimlaji. I'll give it a try. So I come from a development background, working with international non-government organizations and with NGOs, and then kind of drifted into doing research. And the kind of research I do now is primarily participatory research, action research, which allows me to do this combination of a little bit of development work and a little bit of research with the community. But the best part of what this has all meant is that I have learned to listen to the community all over again. After years and years of following a log frame and rushing to finish up all the activities and making sure that we've made all our reports, correctly to the donors, I have now learned to go back to the communities to actually listen to them. And it's been a wonderful experience. Dr. Gentle, when in his presentation, showed how much in Nepal we take pride in community action, collective action. Now I've also realized that particularly in relation to climate change, we've also been burdening, these community groups. We're putting the entire onus of solving the local climate crisis, by women's groups and community forest groups and all these different groups. Now that is not going to happen on its own. And this is where innovation, knowledge, scientific knowledge combined with traditional knowledge and practices, unless these 3 or 4 different groups come together, talk to each other, and listen to each other, things are not going to be sustainable and not going to be around for a long time.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mitaji. We are really running out of time, but I will go to Nils very quickly. We have heard that communities' practices and experiences, social values, norms are very important to fight against climate crisis. How to connect and capitalize them at national, regional, and global level? Especially, what could be the role of WFP, like World Food Program, like organizations? Because we do have so many organizations like that. What role they could play to connect the local realities to the global?
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'll keep this very, very short. I have a whole list of what pathways I think are out there to bring it from the very example in Jumla all the way to the halls of Geneva and New York, right? And I think that's where the UN has a unique network and a unique role to play to support governments to spread that knowledge there. But if you ask me, what are sort of the 3... Sorry? Yeah.
To the global level, and what could be the role of WFP-like organizations?
Yeah, so if you ask me what the 3 key investments are, right, that we can support as a UN agency, as WFP, as a UN system, to bring these good ideas to scale as well, because scale is something that we're looking for here as well. One is we really need to advocate to make sure that we have national, well, even local, national, regional, and global frameworks in place, right, that fully take into account local knowledge, indigenous practices, etc., etc., etc. So I think this is really, really fundamental. The second one is any of these, I think, solutions have the chance to go to scale if they're economically viable, right? And I think that linkage to making sure that climate, community-based climate solutions have an economic edge is fundamental. And then last but not least, and I think the last COP was already pretty good, hopefully the next one will be even better when it comes to advocating to make sure that all these, how many millions and billions did you mention, Martin, from the last COP, that a good portion of that goes explicitly into supporting community-based solutions that take maximum advantage of local knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very specific 3 recommendations you gave, Nils. Thank you so much. They are very helpful. Now I move to my distinguished audience. I hope you have noted down the questions, queries, inputs, thoughts you have on the topic. We have around 15 minutes left for the discussion. Anyone interested, please raise your hand. Yes, please. Okay, first I took only 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, you please.
I've been participating in many conferences and many in all around the world. But the situation has deteriorating. Thousands of people have been killing. Flood, disaster, and the snow is melting. I think there are the 4 things. Necessity that I can ask you all of the speaker, how they are the 4. C, commitment, continuity, consistency, and credibility. Now Nepal has committed to make a zero level of the emission. Like Nepal, can other country has done this? So we must have commitment. And then we have to go regular. Continuity. We should not try. We should not be, we should not rest. Consistency. Consistency will mean that we have to work together. There must be differences, must be solved. Last but not least is the integrity, honesty, so that I hope that I came here just to participate, but I was not allowed to enter, but I convinced I'm 81, so why not? I can give some input. So, all of Your Excellency, I humbly request that how the 4C can be implemented and the outcome will be positive. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. But sir, can you please introduce yourself, your name and yes.
I'm the Division Chief of Agricultural Development for 28 years.
Okay.
I was editor and publisher of the Trade Journal in National Trade Union for 9 years. I've been publishing the small journal by myself that is called Quarterly Development. Actually, that is always never published quarterly because of the limited resources.
Yes,
I may
thank
say
you.
that
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, wait for some time. त्यो अर्को दिनुस् न माइक कता छ ए होइन मैले यतातिर हात अघि उठाएको देखेको थिएँ yeah we go to the pink shirt first ladies yes
distinguished panelist awesome presentation
पहिला अलिकति introduce can we have your introduction
yeah I'm Pragya Ghimeri I'm also associated with Institute of Foreign Affairs and back then Madam, you've also chaired one of the board meetings, if you could remember. Okay, anyways. So my question is to Mr. Neil. If you could share a country-specific good practices adopted by a local community in tackling the adverse impact of climate change in food security, that will be very awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Hello. Good afternoon, all. I'm Virganaran Koirala, Province Secretary from Karnali Province, basically industry, tourism, forestry and environment ministry. Very thank you to all. We heard very much, but community-led climate initiatives basically to
your question
Dr.
is directed to
to
Popular
Dr.
Gentle.
Popular and you also. We have many initiatives later on from 40 years. We have more than 20,000 community-led forestry communities and many more watershed management activities, sustainable forest management practices, and a large bunch of the forest from the nature conservation, national parks and wildlife reserves. Variety of the conservation, minimum 40% population is in hill regions. We are doing our best. Where is the gap even then? Why we are not facing the challenges of the climate change? Why our ice-capped mountains are melting? Why we are watching the worst scenario, but hoping the best scenario, all weather ice-capped mountains? So I want to illustrate where is the climate funding now? Where is the pounding it, the currency? Why the Nepalese people are not benefited from that issue? That is my issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I see a hand there. म त पालो गर्छु हजुर. Turn by turn. Yes. And then yours. एकछिन पछाडि बोल्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो? Yeah. एकदम
Hello.
Very short गर्नुस्.
So good evening to everyone. I'm Pratisha Joshi. I'm currently working as Research and Program Officer at Governance Lab Daitwa. So my question, it could be addressed by anybody. So my question is, as we face the problem of sustainability when it comes to community-led climate initiative, what pathways could be open for youth when it comes to establishing and amplifying the traditional knowledge and the skills, especially in the local areas, to establish a sustainable community-led climate initiatives, and who should be the major actors here in Nepal as we are facing this dearth of a lot of negativities and a lot of hurdles when it comes to youth empowerment.
Thank you. Now I can take only two questions. One gentleman here and another Nakulji. Yes.
Sorry, I will make
You already okay.
question
Okay.
very quick.
Go
Sorry.
on. Yeah, very
Namaste,
short.
everyone. My name is Tashi. I'm from Humla Limi Valley, and so we are talking about community-led initiatives as a very important part in tackling climate crisis. Bringing this in this very context, climate finance is equally important, and I'm wondering that how much climate finance actually go to the community level, because without the finance and resources, it's very difficult for any community level to take an effective solution methods. And I have read Dr. Popular Gentle's paper one time saying that on the community level, the climate finance is like only 10%, and on the grassroots level, it's just 3%.
Thank you, Tashi.
So, yes.
Yeah, your question is clear. Yes. You are now.
I'm D.C. Pandey, Pokhara University, associate professor. By discipline, I'm geography and environment development geographer, and my specialization is climate change and socio-ecological.
Please make it very short.
My specific question is not there, but my suggestion to the panelists as well as other experts in the forum is that Himalaya defied generalization. That's why same do the community. Himalayan community cannot be generalized. That's why adaptation policy, whatever have been made up to now, are generalized. That's why we are failed. Adaptation failure is because of the generalized policy and based on the grey literature. It is serious lacking in policy that peer-reviewed and high-quality research has not been recognized, has not been addressed in the policy. That's why there are several limitations in policy that I request high-level meetings, high-level dialogue. This will be held in this summit. That's why they should consider that thing first. And I have two more things. Another thing is adaptation is a dilemma. Yes, how many things we count out of 100, 99, or 95, or 2? That's why it matters. That's why we are failed adaptation already. Climate change is too fast and we are too slow to adapt. We need to consider that. Third is mitigation. 1 minute.
Because people
mitigation through forest resource has not been recognized as a part of adaptation. Forest is a crop. We need to get to have harvest from forest and get the benefit from the forest. But we are always promoting that forest protection, forest protection. Forest has a limited life. If we don't harvest that, that will be wasted. That will not accumulate carbon anymore. That's why when it matures, it should be allowed to harvest and new plantation should be placed. That's why these things, if we don't harvest forest, we don't have a capacity to fight with climate change. That's why harvest, reforest, harvest, reforest. That's the best option. Thank you.
Thank you. Nakulji, and I'm sorry because people need to respond to the questions. So,
I have a very specific question to Aisha and Mitaji.
Yes, please. Very short, eh?
Yeah. How we can adopt, like in Pakistan, in upper hill and mountains, in Nepal also we have in mountain area, there are indigenous knowledge. But those knowledge are how we can properly document it and keep in knowledge management. Those documents are in how we can influence the policy level. Those are the very critical areas. Even though we talks about a lot about this community lead initiatives, but how we can document and influence the policy. That's what I want to learn from the Pakistan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I saw a hand from very young woman, so I'm giving her the last chance. Yes.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Pramila Biko. I'm Sagarmatha volunteer also, and I'm NYC, engaged in NYC. So anybody can address my answer. So my question is, mountain youth often face double marginalization geographically and economically. What mechanism can be put into place to ensure their unique challenges to address and climate opportunities to climate solution to mountain youth are still trying to bring forward? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your wonderful questions and thoughts. Some of them, I think they are just suggestions and we need to take it up. Few are the specific questions that we may need to respond. May I go from this way? Martin, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
Very quickly, we have only very few minutes.
One I have already clearly mentioned is the way of education. Mobilize the students. They can perform eco rallies in the village. Another thing that has not been mentioned, and here I can give an example of my own country in the Netherlands, is the power of justice. Everybody feels injustice taking place. Sometimes you have to grab the justice. This is what is happening in our country. So people stand up and they fire a case to the government and or institutions. I don't know if the news reached Nepal, but an environmental organization won a case against Shell. Can you imagine? They hold Shell responsible for the climate crisis, partly, and they want to stop them to produce more oil, charcoal, etc. And I know an example from Nepal also. I can mention the name, Tanuja Pandey. She's a lawyer, and she started this case against the new airport to be built. And she was successful. Don't forget the power of social media. So maybe that is, in short, my answer.
Thank you so much. Niels, you had questions about good practices.
Yeah, thanks very much for bringing up the importance of having good examples at hand. So without going into detail of one example, I'm happy to have two of my colleagues here as well, who are the experts on the subject matter. So let's link up and we'll share good examples as much as we can. Climate finance, yes, that was one of my points as well. I think we need to direct this to the communities explicitly and not just on paper. So thank you.
Right, thank you. Mitaji, may I ask two questions for you? What pathways can be there, and who should be the major actors to connect the local communities into the global policy dialogue?
Maybe on indigenous knowledge, just very briefly. The pathways, I haven't been a youth in a long time, so the whole context has changed. But I think youth are more privileged. There is information at their fingertips, but also they forget that they have to go and talk to the people as well. And listen. I emphasize the part on listening, on going out. If you want to work in Nepal, going out to the countryside, going out to the urban areas, and listening to the people. The first round of talks you will have, they will only tell you what they know you want to hear. So it'll be pat answers because they've been very, very used to people coming in and asking them. But go back to them over and over again. Earn their trust, and then they will finally sit with you to talk about their real problems and what they see as maybe some of the solutions. So I would encourage youth to go out and talk and listen. But hopefully with good jobs, okay? So in terms of the indigenous knowledge, only yesterday we were at a small meeting, we were talking about how the IPCC now is actually integrating indigenous knowledge in their assessments. So this has been accepted globally that this is a very important part of knowledge. And I also know of groups that are going from different places in the mountains, in the lowlands, talking to these communities to capture their indigenous knowledge before it becomes obsolete. So that once the knowledge is captured, they want to see what kind of technology or scientific innovations can be integrated into that knowledge in order to address that. So I'll leave it at that and I'll let Aisha do the rest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will quickly respond to the question from the gentleman over here about commitment and consistency and honesty. On the first two, I think progress has been made. The Paris Agreement is there. Every country is preparing their nationally determined contribution, but honesty is lacking. So I think you're quite right that we need more transparency, we need more accountability. To the question on finance from the back, yes, I do work with mountain communities. I endorse what you're saying, and I'm hearing the issue is lack of access of finance to communities. So yes, we definitely need to put the money in the hands of the community, because empowerment without the economies of scale to back them is really making them paper tigers, but nothing more than that. Coming back to your question, I think mountain communities have common issues, no matter whether they're the Himalayas, Karakorums, or the Hindu Kush in our region. They all face similar challenges, and they all have similar constraints. Indigenous knowledge is very, very important. We do need science, we do need innovation, we do need technology, but we cannot isolate it completely from knowledge that has been a lived experience for the communities who live in that environment. So I think the platforms that we need are already there in place, and spaces that we need are also available. I have repeatedly returned to Nepal to be part of such conversations, and in the region it provides a very neutral space to have free, honest discussions, and ECMOD provides you with the platform for creating networks. So these knowledge networks can be created and managed by them to take projects which gather all this knowledge and bring it together. And I have been part of conversations where communities and representatives have come and shared this knowledge, but I think putting those communities directly in touch with each other is equally important. So we have to find a way of how we bring the grassroots communities together so that they can learn from each other's best practices. And also, and quick suggestion for that, Bimlaji, if you allow, is that I know that, you know, I have worked in mountains, and I know that mountain porters, both high altitude, low altitude porters, move across borders to be part of expeditions. Now, these porters are trekking on the same route every year, literally. They can become the eco-scientists for the scientific community, and they can also start generating the stories that are anchored in tradition. Because when they bring back these stories from their experience and they share that data on the cryosphere, because they see that change happening every year, can be very beneficial to link science with communities and with tradition. I'm a strong believer that tradition must be maintained, but tradition must be a living and evolving thing. So old traditions must be preserved, but we must create new set of traditions which reflect the problems that we face today, so that future generations can borrow and live off those traditions to make the world a safer place.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now I hand over, just 1 minute. There are some questions related to finance if you want to say something.
Thank you very much. We must recognize the contribution of local communities, the burden, the additional responsibility that the local communities are bearing in these uncertain circumstances. But if we compare the actual adaptation needs and how people are coping with their indigenous knowledge and practices, there is a big gap. So there is injustice. We have not provided enough resources. We have not provided enough capacity and technology to the local communities. So what communities are doing is really important, but this is not sufficient. So there is injustice in terms of making the global actors accountable to fulfill their commitments. And also, if we see the condition in-house, the adaptation efforts, so far we implemented in the last 10 years, mostly we are doing business as usual, maybe because of lack of capacity within us, and there is another gap in addressing the hazards than the vulnerability. So if we consider these things internally, and if we make the global policymakers more accountable for their commitments to allocate resources, I think that could be the roadmap. Have a successful adaptation by local community. Thank you.
I want to conclude with two positive remarks. One is the gentleman over there, 81 years old, standing up for climate justice. I think that is wonderful. We have an organization in the Netherlands called the Climate Grandfathers. They stand up not only for their children, but for their grandchildren. So a big compliment to you. Another one is I've seen the change. Until yesterday, all the bottles in this hotel were plastic. From today, they have changed, even in my room, and I hope it will remain like that.
So, positivity. Thank you so much for your positive notes. With this, we end our session. We have a very tight schedule, but still we could manage it. Thank you so much, my esteemed panelists, for your wonderful thoughts, and thank you, audience, for having a wonderful comments, inputs, and your patience to listen to us. Thank you so much. I hand over now to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bimala Raipaudel, and thank you to all our panelists and participants for the truly insightful discussion. We learned about how blending traditional knowledge, science, and community action can build climate resilience. Our speakers highlighted stories from Nepal and beyond, from revival of ancient canals in Peru to cultivation of medicinal plants in Himalayas. They also emphasized the importance of civil society policy research and blending indigenous practices into modern tools like early warning system, climate insurance, and many more. Once again, thank you so much for your wisdom and vision. Moving on, we move to the token of love session. For that, I would like to request Dr. Bimala Raipaudel to provide a token of love to Dr. Papura Gentle. Next, I'll request Dr. Bimala Raipaudel to again present the token of love to Ms. Aisha Khan. Now I request Dr. Bimala Raipaudel to provide the token of love to Martin Oldav. And I also like to request Dr. Bimala Raipaudel to provide the token of love to Niels Blazer. Mr. Niels Blazer. At last, I'd like to request again to Dr. Bimala Raipaudel to provide a token of love to Meera Sainju Pradhan. And at the end, I'd like to request Mr. Sonam Gyaljan Sherpa, Upper House Parliament member, to provide a token of love to Dr. Bimala Raipaudel. He is the leader of the community initiative. I request all the panelists and the speakers for the group photo. Please be seated in the position. With that, we come to the end of the day 1 of the Sagarmatha Sambaad. Thank you for being a part of this insightful evening. Have a wonderful night and see you all again tomorrow. Thank you.